The CX-50 is Mazda's new adventure SUV. And well, to have an adventure, you first have to get there. So just how efficient will the CX-50 be in getting you where you want to go? Today, we're gonna find out. This is Christopher Brower here with Daily Motor, and today we're running the real-world highway fuel economy test on the 2023 Mazda CX-50 2.5 Turbo Premium Plus. Before we get started, let's hop out and take a look around it. A completely new model for 2023. The CX-50 is 6 inches longer, 3 inches wider, but 2 inches shorter than the current CX-5. It's not replacing the CX-5 that we know of. It's basically a slightly more rugged SUV with just a little bit more cladding there on the wheel arches. And as I mentioned, this particular CX-50 is powered by Mazda's 2.5-liter turbocharged engine. Power is sent to all 4 wheels, but you are able to get a naturally aspirated version of the CX-50 also with power sent to all 4 wheels. All-wheel drive is standard on this, but today we'll be testing the turbocharged vehicle. And if you want to learn more about the CX-50, I will have my full review linked in the description. It covers everything in and out, and we take it for a proper test drive. But today, we're going to find out how this thing does on the highway. So, with all that out of the way, why don't we go ahead and get started? So then, why do we do this test? Well, the EPA's fuel economy test, which gives this CX-50 Turbo 29 MPG on the highway, only averages 48 miles per hour. And we know that some people like to take their cars on actual road trips. So what we do is we go out 50 miles and back 50 miles, averaging 70 miles per hour for a more real-world figure. A couple things worth noting for today's test. Outside temperature is 83 degrees Fahrenheit. We'll be running the climate control in here at 73 degrees auto. And the tires have been set to their factory door placard indicated 35 PSI. We'll also be using the same gas pump both times using the same 3-click filling method to get the most accurate results possible. And just about 5 gallons in there for our first fill. Go ahead and get started. Go ahead and reset our trip here. Trip is reset, and we're going to click auto on our climate control. Apologies if that vent starts running a little bit high, but it's a hot day out, so we must soldier through. Now, the purpose of this test is not to hypermile. I have simply merged onto the highway, set the cruise control to a GPS indicated 72 miles per hour, and I'm just gonna drive. Under first highway impressions, this CX-50 is super comfortable. I've been living with this thing now for about a week. I've done plenty of highway driving, and it's really just done everything very nicely. This 2.5 turbo is super quiet. You never hear it. Being that this is a 6-speed automatic, though, we are revved at just over 2,000 RPM, so we shall have to see what that means for our 70 mile per hour test. EPA gives this thing 29, but as I said earlier, that average is 48, so we'll have to see what it gets in a real-world setting. One thing that's going to sound funny, but is super important, both of my elbows are very comfortable in the CX-50, and that's important if you're going on a road trip. You have to have good elbow comfort, and I'm happy to report we've got 2 very, very soft surfaces here for the elbows. The seats themselves are very comfortable. The wind intrusion is very minimal. We do have a little bit of road intrusion, but I blame that on the Goodyear tires that they have on this CX-50. Definitely not the most ideal tires, but it'll be all right. Ride comfort seems to be very nice as well, and I've had a good time living with this thing, so I'm curious to see what it will get in this highway fuel economy test. As far as driver assists go in the CX-50, we do have lane keep. We also have radar cruise and a steering assist. So we'll have to test those assists out on our journey today, and I will report back at the end on how this thing has performed and how it's been to sit in for just about 100 miles. All right, guys, well, I'm going to go ahead and get to driving, and I will catch up with you in about 95 miles. wrapping up our drive here on this 2023 Mazda CX50, and this thing has done just about as well as I have expected. It's been very comfortable, very quiet. The Bose sound system is pretty good, and as you can see here on our display, we are averaging almost 30 MPG. So we'll have to see once we get back to the pump how this thing actually did. As far as driver aids went, the radar cruise did a pretty good job. It had a couple slip-ups where it braked a little bit harder than I would have wanted to when cars were exiting and things like that, but otherwise it did a pretty good job. The actual lane keep assist is not really the best in the world either. It'll steer you out of an emergency. You know, if I hit the shoulder and it needs to steer me back into the lane, it will do that, but it's not a full-on steering assist like a Hyundai that will just drive down the road for you. So a little bit disappointing there, but I mean, it got the job done. The adaptive cruise control, other than what I mentioned, did a good job. And otherwise, this is just a super comfortable car to ride in. The seats are great, the ride is great, and it's just very quiet and nice. The infotainment knob down here, super easy to use to get back and forth from Apple CarPlay to whatever you need to do. It's all very easy to use. Volume knob down here, nice and easy. And I don't know, guys, just a really nice experience here. My elbows have been comfortable the entire time, which is important. Soft points for both elbows. And that's about it, guys. I'm going to go ahead and finish up the drive. In fact, my exit is right here. So we'll go ahead and pull up to the pump, fill this thing up, and I will update you with how much fuel this Mazda CX-50 took. And 3.302 gallons in there for our final fill. Let's get that clicked, and let's go ahead and do some math inside the car. Today's trip was 107.6 miles. Divide that by the 3.302 gallons of gas that we used, and that gives us 32.58 MPG. While this does seem a little bit high, the car was actually reading 30.1 at the end. So if you were to take the average of the two, you'd be somewhere in the 31 range, which means we have actually excelled above EPA rating in this Mazda CX-50. This actually rounds up to 33. But I am going to round it down to 32 just because of what the car was reading. So we'll go with 32 MPG today in this Mazda CX-50, and that was on regular fuel as well. Okay, so take our MPG rating here, and we will multiply that by 15.8, as that is the size of our fuel tank, and that gives us an effective highway cruising range of 510 miles. I always say it is a win when the car is able to go over 500 miles on the highway, and the CX-50 can do just that, just about 510. So a pretty good performance here from this turbocharged all-wheel drive SUV, getting over 30 MPG and beating EPA. So pretty cool to see for this totally new model from Mazda. Hopefully we have the non-turbo version in the future so we can test that as well. But for now, I hope you guys have enjoyed watching the fuel economy test on this Mazda CX-50. Comment down below, would you have a CX-50 or a CX-5? I'm still a little bit torn. Make sure you watch my review if you'd like to learn more on this car. And that'll be it for us today. This has been Christopher Brower here with Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.